Hello students, I will explain in this video the second part of task 2 must reading materials about storyboarding. Now we will start with build the storyboard. We need to understand what's the meaning of storyboarding, which is a visual representation of your script. At the end, it's a document that shows the flow of your video scene by scene. Now the storyboards are made from hand drawing sketches, and this technique used by many disciplines and industries. So because of that, the storyboarding is divided into the following phases, as we can find it here. So the idea here, before I start creating the animation, I need to plan my animation using this technique, which is called the storyboard. This one to be validated, to be checked by many audience, by many animators, and then validate the steps that will be created as animation, and scene by scene it will be validated, reviewed, tested, of course enhanced. So this is the idea. I need to plan before I start create the real animation using the computer. So this technique is called the storyboarding. Now the first step we have it inside the storyboarding is called thumbnailing. As you can find here, this is the first rough sketch of your storyboard. Now here in this step we need to create what is called thumbnails, or small drawings about the scenes, the steps that you need to create in your animation. So this step or this phase will help you work out the sequence of your shots and provide, of course, opportunity to enhance and validate, as we said, your animation. So this is example about thumbnailing. So here to show you all the shots or the scenes of your animation. Now after that we have another step, is called thumbnail revision. This one, of course, this step you need to ask yourself in this step number of questions to enhance, to of course overcome some problems you have it in the scenes or in the shots. So for example, I need to ask myself, do the shots make sense? So if I satisfy with the thumbnails I draw, then in this case maybe everything is fine with me and there is no problem with the scenes I have planned. So at the end or after this step, if something is not working well, so here in this case there is not over problem areas, and in this case we need to redraw these shots, these thumbnails, until it feels right. So any fix you make here will save your time. So before I move to more or further steps, further phases, in this step I need to fix any problem in the thumbnails I have drawn in the first phase, which is called a thumbnail. So we have thumbnailing, then we have thumbnail revision to enhance, to improve, to fix the shots that I have planned in the first phase. Then after that I have storyboarding. In this storyboarding, after you complete your drawing, here in this case we will use the space underneath each frame. So here we have the frames I draw. So this is the first step, this is the second step, and this is the third step. So I need to write just a brief explanation, a brief dialogue beneath or underneath each frame of these thumbnails. So for example, here in the first thumbnail, on the first shot, I put here climbing, and the second one is also still climbing. Then here in the third example here I put throwing words into funnel. So here in this case I put a brief description. So this is the concept behind the story boarding. So once you have done, then we need to test our storyboard by, of course, getting feedback from some audiences. So here in this, sorry, from some audience, and this one will be done in this step, which is called storyboard revision. So this is the time to test out your storyboards by representing them to a small audience, or at very least in front of some people, those they can give me let us say hard questions and hard feedback. So here, once you have made change based on your feedback, revise your boards and clean them up for public consumption. So very simply, the steps is to start drawing the of course the, let us say, the scenes, the shots of your animation, how many shots, how many scenes, and after that try to fix any problem in these shots. Then after that you need to add a dialogue, small or brief description below each thumbnail. Then after that we need to test our storyboard with some audience to get feedback, and in case if we get valuable feedback, we have to implement it on the storyboard. Now, how we can make our of course here, or to reveal information to our audience, or to the audience, to make our storyboard simple and of course attractive, and all the details needed in the animation are there. So what kind of techniques, or let us say what methods, approach we can use to make our animation successful? So here in the short composition, we have some rules, some method that we need to follow. So the short composition is all about revealing information to your audience, how to provide information to the audience, what we can do to make it close, to make it, for example, clear, and then of course attractive to the users. Now, the first, let us say, method, rule, or approach we can use to provide information to the audience is called a framing. Framing is all about keeping the eye interested, and one of the methods that can achieve that is called rule of the third, which is to provide easy to follow tool for keeping your framing dynamic. And this one is discussed, as you remember, in task 1, is to divide the image or the scene into thirds using 2 vertical line and 2 horizontal line, and always try to put of course the object into one of the intersection lines here. So this one is more interesting than this because this one is too centered, but when we have intersection between vertical and horizontal line, is preferred and recommended to put the object there. The same thing here with this example. This one is too centered, but this one is more interesting. So this concept is called framing, how to keep the eye interesting by using this method. Is called rule of thirds. Another one is staging. So here in this method, you want your audience to clearly see what's going on with your subject. So here we don't want to make the scene crowded, but we need to focus about the information or the details that we want to display on the or in the scene. So as we can find here in this example, this scene is much better than, because this one is crowded with many details there, but this one it's focused that this girl is drawing or writing something on the desk. But here, for example, sorry, here is not clear what's happening, but when I look at this scene, this staging, I can understand a key is given to of course to this person, and of course this key is related to the car. So here is more clear without all the details that maybe will make the shot is not clear to the audience. Now there is another method or approach these need to be considered when we create an animation. Is called transition and continuity, which is of course the natural flow of visual information from one shot to another. and this one how we can consider this point. Now regarding the continuity, we have three types of continuities: spatial continuity, temporal continuity, and directional continuity. Now just by example you can understand the concept of spatial continuity. So for example, if you establish early on your story that there is a forest behind a boy's house, so when he runs out of his house and into the backyard, you know where is his headed into the woods. So for example, here is explaining if you have forest behind the house, when the boy is getting out from the house into the backyard, then for sure is going to the forest. Don't change the environment. You have to keep the environment. If there is a highway in front of the house, that means the boy when is coming out from the house and going in front, then there is a highway there. Don't change the environment when you start creating the animation. Now regarding temporal continuity, this one is for example about to add some logic into your into the story. And the temporal continuity, it has three types of continuity. One is called the chronologically, which is about timing, flashbacks, and the flash forward. So for example, we can find in some cartoons, when I find for example delicious food, very nice food, you can find the eyes of the object. In case of girl or boy, it will be turned into hearts. So that means is the food is delicious. For example, when I want to think about something, we can find a question mark will be displayed over my head. So this one we call it temporal continuity, just to add some logic, just to add some of course interesting objects or properties into the animation. The last one is directional continuity. This one we need to consider it. For example, as we said, if the car is, as we have in this example, if the car is driving from left side of a panel to the right, so you must continue that same movement into your next shot. So the car is moving from left to right. When I have another shot, another scene, so the car should continue with the same direction. I cannot put it, for example, from right to left. Then here of course will confuse the animation, and it's actually a mistake when you create such animation. So you have to keep the same direction. If the guy is moving or walking or running from left to right, then in the second shot it's continue with the same direction, which is left to right. So these are the we have some errors maybe in some films, in some cartoons or some animation, so need to be considered by of course consider these three methods and approach. Now the last thing about timing and animatics. So the timing is important. You need to plan about or establish the time plan about your timing. So what are the steps considered here for timing? So you can follow these like recommendation. First step is to determine how long time your whole piece must run. This is called total run time. After that, you need to break your story into 3 acts and establish how many seconds each act must be. So this is also another step or need to be considered and recommended when you create your animation. Finally, time, you need to time each scene. So you need to determine the total running time. You need to break the timing into acts, into scenes. Then after that, you need to specify the time of each scene. So this is what you need to consider when you time your animation. The last thing in your, after all of this planning, after all of this, of course, preparation for the animation, something is called animatic. Animatic, which is the video version of your storyboard, of course, in sequence or laid out in sequence on an animation timeline with the sound track aligned. So this video will allow you to see the storyboard come to life and get the true scene of how your story will time out. So after all of this planning, we need to create video to check, of course, all the storyboard, all the effects, and the sound is also aligned with the animation to, of course, see everything live and consider in case if anything need to be considered in the animation. So this is the about the storyboarding steps that need to be followed to create successful animation. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.